Monkeyboy's YouTube channel is stance independently and intersubjectively the best YouTube channel. Subscribe to his YouTube and Patreon. I'm talking from the heart.
I saw something this morning.
What's up, Isaac? You disagree with the topic, I'm assuming?
What's up, Monkey? I mean, yeah, I'm a Christian. It's not a secret. I don't mind sharing that with you guys. Who is the host? Is the host in
Yeah, I
here?
know. Yeah, the host is here, but you can talk to any of us and think he's in a game or something. I don't know.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just want to know your guys' thoughts on it. You guys said the problem says Spider-Man is morally greater than Jesus, and I just want to know, without borrowing any morals or ethical principles from Judeo-Christianity, what's the standard of morality here? What are we comparing Spider-Man and Jesus to?
That's just confused. First, I don't know what you mean by borrowing ethical principles, but in any case, what's just being said is that given given Spider-Man existed and had the power that Jesus as a God has, and he was placed in the state of affairs as Jesus, he would act to prevent the evils Jesus doesn't, for which we can say reasonably he's morally benevolent. Contrastively, he's a better person.
So what do you mean by evil? Like evil how? Like what kind of evil? Like in the comics evil? Like the bad guy robbing somebody or something like that?
Things,
But
the folk concept of evil, just things that shouldn't happen.
Like
yeah, and additionally, like since he's making like an internal critique, you could also say whatever you mean by evil, since the critique is internal.
Yeah, I don't mind. I just don't want to draw any assumptions. I don't want to assume that I know what you guys believe. I think it's fair to lay foundation, build some common ground, to have a meaningful dialogue. That's all. I'm not trying to trap anybody. I'm not trying to trap anybody.
Look, just an example. Yeah, an example is like when a kid's like getting raped in an alleyway, like Jesus stands with his arms crossed and watches the whole thing and does nothing. You know, Spider-Man, given the power, would like prevent the act. Okay,
so the way that you're saying is like Jesus does not intervene, Spider-Man does, and therefore Spider-Man is greater than Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So based on the example, it sounds like in that, to be fair, are we, in that example that you gave, are we being as objectively critical to the culprit causing the evil as we are to God?
I don't understand the question.
Are we holding? So it's how do I say this to be more clear? Like, how do you arrive?
We're not talking about We're not talking about culpability.
I don't understand what culpability has to do with what we're saying.
Okay, yeah, let me try to be clear. What I mean is, how do you arrive at the conclusion that Jesus is evil for not intervening, rather than the rapist?
We just said we're not talking
you want clarity, man. I got to be able to talk if you want clarity.
Also, you can't say the R word, and also we're not talking about culpability.
R word can't be said. Got it. Okay, so how do you arrive at the conclusion that Jesus is evil, as opposed to the rapist?
Saying anyone's evil. We're saying that Spider-Man's morally better.
Okay, morally better.
Yeah, like let me like flesh it out for you.
If I had $1 trillion and someone else had $1 trillion and I donated $5, the other guy donated $50 to charity, the one who, given they have the same amount of money, one would be better. We're not saying either are evil.
Better compared to what?
Drastic. What? Spider-Man compared to Jesus. What's confusing?
The than statement is already there. It tells you
what's confusing is where is the assumption coming from that there is a standard that's supposed to be better? Why is Jesus being compared when any other person who does not intervene is not getting the equal critique? What better as to what?
We're saying better than Jesus, given the fact it would be better to do that act, which Jesus isn't, and given Spider-Man is doing it. He's morally better.
Bro, Isaac, like, let me flesh it out for you. Like, the first premise is like, if there's two persons, X and Y, and X would prevent a child from being raped, and he does do it wherever he has the power to do so, and Y doesn't, then X is better. If you agree with this premise, then we can do like P2, a universal instantiation, like where we substitute X for Jesus, where we substitute X for Spider-Man and Y for Jesus. Like, if you agree with the first premise, then one can just do a universal instantiation, and then like it's over.
That's right. Yeah, I like the way that you fleshed it out, man. I appreciate that. I guess what I'm saying is, as a theist, I objectively agree that evil should be prevented and intervened and stopped. But what does the atheist have to compare that to, other than their own subjective assumption? That's why I keep saying compared to what?
Okay, but if you've understood how he fleshed that out, do you understand how when you respond with how the atheist's attitude towards something is irrelevant to what's being expressed? Because like if you didn't understand what Brian was, if you said that you understood what Brian was saying, right? That was different to you. Then you shouldn't be following it up with that, right? That's where we're getting confused. You should not be following it up with you. Then you shouldn't be following it up with that, right? That's where we're getting confused. You should not be.
Well, let me help you. Let me try to help you. As a theist, I agree with the premise.
It's not about helping me. It's about helping you understand, right?
Oh, it's about me. Okay. Well, let me help you understand. As a theist, it's not problematic to
agree with the premise. You're the one confused.
Me understand anything.
Theists don't have a problem with morality because we believe in a God that gives morality.
Look, I've muted you, right? And the reason why I've muted you is because what we want to do is we want to stay focused. It's fine if you have these points. They might be really good points, right? We're not taking that away from you.
but we don't want to move on. It gives me some weird anxiety when we don't tie up a little portion of the conversation. So in the dialectic right now where we're at, we're asking you if you understood what Brian said, because you wouldn't respond with what you said if that was the case. So maybe Brian, I think Brian was really good at explaining that. I don't know if maybe Brian wants to explain it again, or if we want to ask Isaac to just repeat what Brian said.
Yeah, you can try and repeat, and if you don't reproduce it correctly, then I'll repeat it again and maybe be more careful while doing it.
Yeah, and this isn't to shame anybody. We want to make sure you're tracking, because look, dude, if we have a real objection towards you, there's no point of doing this dance of like the atheist this and that. Just understand what we're saying, and maybe it's stupid, but you're not going to know if you're not understanding.
Yeah, you can unmute now, and you can then just attempt to reproduce what I said. So go ahead.
Hey, I appreciate you saying that, man. Yeah, I agree in winning a person, not just the argument. I'm not here to win an argument. I don't think any of you guys are going to be convinced and become theists and walk
We don't
away
need
from
the
this.
meta, though.
Okay, we got it.
I think the reason why muting and talking over Christians is comfortable is because that's controlling the narrative. I was just trying to
Oh my
simply
God,
say,
cut the meta. Look,
Right.
just reproduce what Brian said.
Just reproduce.
Just do
You
that.
can just start fresh from this point. We don't have to make any oh, I'm mad at this guy for doing this and that. It's nothing personal. I don't care about. We just don't want our time wasted about the meta stuff. It's cool. You feel ways about stuff about atheists. We got it. Right. Just talk about the content.
okay, how do atheists come to morality without God?
Fuck. Are you
You're having a moral conversation. How do you
We asked you to repeat what he said. Brian didn't ask a question. He gave propositions, right?
Yeah, and I just asked him a question.
Yeah. Do you
Just
know
ask him a question.
Do you know the difference, Brian? Or not Brian, I'm sorry, Isaac. Do you know the difference between asking a question and a
So
proposition?
upsetting about the question.
Yeah. Here's what's upsetting. It's the nature of the question, right?
I'm just asking a question. It's a fair question.
not responding.
It's not exactly. It's not responding, because one.
It's not what you want, but it's fair.
No, yes,
It's not
It's
responding.
not what we want. We want you to repeat and steal man for the sake. Look, we're trying to do something. We're trying to do. I'm muting you. Just stop speaking. Just stop speaking for a second. Listen, I'm not doing anything uncharitable. I'm trying to get you to understand. What we want to do in the dialectic is to get you to repeat what Brian said, because it's important to us. It's our point. And if you want to be dishonest and not represent us properly, feel free to do so. But you look weak to every single person, right, in the audience that understands what's going on. What we want to do is make sure that our point is made understood. Now, when you ask a question that isn't anything relevant to what Brian said, because Brian gave premises. Those are propositions. They're bivalent. They can give true or false values. Questions can't, right? So you're just fundamentally confused. I'm going to give you another chance before I just completely ridicule you and call you stupid, right? So go ahead and steel man it. I give you one last chance. Otherwise, we'll just move the fuck on, because you're clearly not tall enough to ride. It's very clear you're not tall enough to ride.
I mean, I knew this was going to happen because I had this guy on my live a couple days ago, and he's I'm not going to lie, he's like a complete scumbag.
Like,
Kinda does this
You know,
thing
I
where he
asked the question the other day, Monkey, I asked you to define evidence.
He
repeat what he
acts
said. Stop
like
that.
nice in the beginning, and then he just
Literally
starts-
recording the screen to show people how you're just muting my mic. Every time I say,
Okay, look,
just
just
muting
make
my
it
mic
clear.
over and over. Just muting my mic. I'm asking.
Look, let's just make this clear. Just reproduce the point that Brian had iterated, right? Just reproduce it.
Exactly. You look stupid.
You're not going to control me.
recording.
You're
All
not
you're
going to
doing is-
control me.
Okay.
Okay. So you're
This-
just not
we're gonna
willing
have
to
this
engage in the
lesson.
dialectic. Is that the move? Just answer yes or no. Are you willing, yes or no, to engage in the dialectic? So far, where we're at is you just reproducing what you understand our view to be, right? Now, if
I'm
willing
asking
do
you
that,
to explain your view.
You're just a dishonest.
I'm asking you to explain it. I asked you to
Okay, so
explain how atheists.
okay, Isaac, is that you admitting that you didn't understand it? Because that's fine. That's perfectly fine. That actually makes progress. We don't have any problem if you just go, look, I didn't understand.
You can't stop muting me
I am muting you to ask you a
because
question.
you can't have open dialogue.
I'm trying to have open dialogue, you dumb fuck. Now listen, right? And I understand that, I understand your brain is so tiny and you can't comprehend this. I get it. I fucking get it. If it was like rolling a fucking, your brain into a goddamn straw, it'd be like rolling a kernel into a storm drain. I get it. I fucking get it how tiny your brain is. And I want you to comprehend where the dialectic is. Could you reproduce what Brian said? And if you're not willing to go through that dialectic, get the fuck off, hit the X button, and think about never talking again, because you're an idiot.
I asked you a question. It's a fair question.
Bro, wait.
No,
We
it's
don't
not.
need you saying
It's established common ground. It's a fair.
No,
Wait,
don't
guys,
get to
can I
just
talk to him?
Yeah. Sorry, Brian. You can go ahead. I'm just gonna say one last thing, which is you don't get to declare in someone else's line of reasoning your own line of reasoning. You look like a weak fuck. Now, just consider hitting the X button and shutting the fuck up forever and just do Fortnite or something. You're probably way better at that than this, right? You're clearly way better at anything than doing this.
Yeah, so Isaac, the reason, why they want you to reproduce what I said is because when I said it, you asked a question that wasn't relevant to the argument that I gave. So they just want to make sure that you track the conversation, that you know what we're discussing. So for the sake of dialectic and, to know whether or not you track, they want you to reproduce what I said. So can you reproduce what I said? Let's not talk about what happened on some live a few days ago. Well, let's just stop with that shit. Let's just, reproduce what I said. That's all that I want. You can unmute yourself.
And you won't.
You can unmute yourself, Isaac. Bro, Isaac, you can unmute.
I predict he'll drop.
Is that done?
Oh, yeah,
I'm,
muted.
I'm ready for open dialogue, but please stop muting me.
Okay, so
It's not
reproduce
fair.
the point. Okay, reproduce the
Stop
point.
the muting.
I'm going to allow you to. I'm going to allow you to re-explain exactly what you mean, so that I don't interrupt. I don't want you guys to say I'm not able to reproduce. Go ahead and
Okay,
say it again,
just
and I'll just hear what
That's
you have
great.
to say. Go ahead. I'm just trying to have dialogue. I'm not even trying to argue
But
with you guys.
we're gonna ask you the same question, which is to reproduce it. Which is, by the way, I appreciate this. If you're asking him to just reproduce, that's fine. We don't. I'm not trying to shame you as like, oh, did you catch up? Right? Which is literally to understand what's being expressed. Now, if he goes ahead and explains it, we're gonna ask you the same question. Are you okay with that? Which is to just reproduce it at the best ability you have. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, dude.
Okay,
I'm sitting here
great,
waiting.
great, perfect. Let's go.
Yeah, so can you reproduce like what I said, or should I repeat it again?
No, I need you to repeat it. It's been such a long time. I don't even remember what you said now.
Okay. So the first premise, P1, is just if there's two person, X and Y, and X is willing to save a child from being raped, and he does do that wherever he has the power to do so, and Y doesn't, then X is a better person than Y. And premise 2 is just going to be a universal instantiation, where we substitute X for Spider-Man and Y for Jesus. Since a universal instantiation is a valid inference rule, you can't deny it, the argument is going to be valid. So if you agree with the first premise, then you gotta agree with the second one.
I think if you want people to reproduce that, you need to shorten it. I'm going to do my best to give you the summarized view of it. If I understand what you're saying, P1, if X can prevent this thing from happening, then X is better than Y.
What?
Right.
And does so when
Great. I'm trying to avoid the word in general because it's weird. So premise 1 is
if I prevent like the bunch of kids from being raped, and like the same scenario, like I don't, or monkeyboy like just sits there and goes, okay, let it happen, right? Which one of us is morally greater on your view?
I don't know, man. I was reproducing the argument.
I know this is just an easy way to see if you accept the first premise, right? So like in the case where like I stop the grapes, right, and like monkeyboy doesn't, right, to make him look terrible, which one of us is morally greater on your view?
I just got a phone call in the middle of that. I'm sorry. You have to repeat yourself.
Yeah,
Somebody was just calling me in the middle of
I
that.
stop child grapes. Monkey Boy doesn't, right? He doesn't prevent it. He just sits there and he's like, yeah, I'll let it happen. Or maybe I'll deal with him later or something like that. But he just doesn't prevent it. Which one is morally greater?
The one who prevents grape from happening.
Great. So the argument is just going to go through. Appreciate it. Thanks for playing.
Yeah, if you agree with like P1, then
the point is Spider-Man would prevent them. Jesus doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's it. Am I allowed to ask any questions now?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, you just sunk yourself into oblivion. That's fine. Go ahead, buddy.
How do we know that grape is evil?
It doesn't matter. The point is, you agree
Of
that
course
if
it does. Come on, man.
no, it doesn't.
Isaac,
No, it doesn't. Hold on.
Yeah,
It's
it
this
does.
simple.
Yeah, it does, dude. If there is no God, how do you know it's evil, man?
Okay. Supposing we don't know how, the point is, you agree that when someone has the capability to prevent an evil and acts not to do so, versus a person who does, that the person who is preventing it is doing something better. We don't have to go to the epistemology. It doesn't matter how we know something's evil.
We don't have to go to epistemology. That doesn't matter.
We have the fact that acting to prevent the grapes would be good. Therefore, we have reason to think Spider-Man is morally better than Jesus.
But to a theist, this is acceptable for a reason that deserves to be visited. It just deserves to be addressed. If you guys want to have philosophical conversations, why not go to those places?
Bro, wait, Isaac.
It's easier to call you stupid.
Isaac, like, let's say...
Don't even entertain that. I just want to now know, so do you disagree that Spider-Man is morally better than Jesus?
No, I just presented something that deserves to be responded to. I don't think
so if you
guys
don't
are
disagree,
really...
if we don't, okay, yeah, we're done here. I mean, look, you don't disagree. We got you to bite the bullet that Spider-Man's better. Great.
For the sake of chat, if anyone is possibly confused by that, even if Jmike and monkeyboy granted that God does exist and we do need him for morality, it's irrelevant to the question. The question is still there on whether or not God is more moral than Spider-Man.
I think that's actually an interesting point, because like I think people I think he was hung up for like that exact reason of this, like, yeah, but like you're you know what I mean, like this, but you're in the non-God world, so how do you ground? It's like, bro, you are not even, you're like in Frank Turek land, you're just really just lost, like
you go from an internal critique just immediately to, well,
the thing about how do you get there doesn't matter as long as it's true, because suppose the way I got to the conclusion that's true is false. Well, we can still give a deduction from the facts, right? And this guy's like so brain dead he doesn't understand that. Suppose I have no account for how these things are evil. As long as it's factively evil, right? And someone who has the power to prevent them would act to do it versus one who doesn't. Well, it's a fact they're evil. I don't know how they're evil, but they're evil. And therefore, a being who acts to prevent them is doing a good versus one who doesn't. That's simple.
Right.
And why did we even bring the brain dead guy back up? Maybe he can understand what I just explained very simply.
With all due respect, Monkey, I think you're a pseudo
Do you
philosopher.
understand? Do you understand that
I don't
point?
think you're as good at philosophy as you
That's
claim
fine.
to
Do
be,
you
dude. Because
do you
in
understand?
philosophy,
Oh,
Now I
we
just
don't
feel like
we
we
don't
won
need that.
twice when you do that, right? I feel like we won again.
Yeah.
I feel like if you had some balls, you'd let me
Yeah,
talk. It's not
yeah,
muting
so-
me.
Now I
so
feel like I
yes.
won for
Weak
a
to me.
third time. Thanks.
Okay, just
Huh?
answer. Yeah, just answer the question.
Are you
Do you
scared?
understand? Do you understand what I just explained? Do you
To listen to
understand
your
what I
pseudo
just explained?
philosopher
Okay,
argument
so
that you attempted to present, because you have cognitive bias.
I'll explain it again. I'll explain it again. So the point I'm making here is that supposing it's true, I don't know how I got to the conclusion or the way in which I got to the conclusion, things like rape are evil, as long as we stipulate it's factively evil, which under your view, you have the reasons to believe. So we have the established conclusion, at least from your view, and I don't have reasons to have that conclusion, but the conclusion is true. From the facts, we can deduce that Spider-Man is better given those facts, independent if I'm justified in believing those facts. So now under your view, as long as you have the justification, you are now recognizing that Spider-Man is morally better than Jesus with the reasons you have accessible, such that our conclusion is right.
The premise has a presupposition that grape is evil. It has
Do you
to be
understand
explained.
that?
As a
But did you understand what
It's
I
a
just said?
presupposition. It's an assumption that doesn't need to be
Wait,
proved according to
okay,
you guys. That's
but
what a presupposition is.
hold on.
Hold on, Monkey
Do
Boy,
you
how do
understand what I just said?
I wasn't even listening to you because you have a presupposition, dude. You're confirmation
Okay,
bias.
so look, try and I'll say it now for a third time, and if you
I'm
don't
not going to listen to you
you're
for a
dropped.
third time. I don't care, dude.
Why are
Then-
you
okay,
being
then-
You're bad at
dishonest,
philosophy.
guys?
I know you think you're really good at philosophy.
Look,
You cannot have an open
bad.
dialogue.
Yeah, I'm bad. I'm terrible. Look, I'll either reproduce it in which you can listen and engage, or I'll block
I don't
you.
care. I don't care. Explain where evil comes from.
Wait. You're the
Explain
one
standard and
being
evil. How do you know?
You're the one being dishonest now. Because
I'm being dishonest because I can't get a response to evil.
I explained how it's irrelevant in depth, right? And I asked you if you
You're
understand,
just
but
ignoring it. You're not explaining
listening.
reason for it. Make a reason. Make a case
I
for
did.
it. Why is it
I
irrelevant
did,
that the origin
I
of evil
did,
deserves
I
to have
did.
an explanation?
Oh my God.
You agreed
Calm
with
down.
the first premise, and we're doing an infinite.
I
can agree with that.
It's really dishonest to claim that I didn't explain how it's irrelevant when I explained it twice, and I asked you if you listened or understood the explanation, and you said no, I didn't even listen to what I said. So how are you in any position to make the claim I didn't give an explanation when I offered an explanation, the same explanation twice, and both times you said you refused to listen because you're the one who's biased. You said you don't want to listen, so you intentionally ignored what I said. So now I'll reproduce it for a third time since you're claiming. Now you're contradicting. You're saying you don't want to hear it for a third time, which I guess. I mean, you didn't hear it. You didn't. Don't overtalk. Not in the middle. Not in the middle of my sentence. Okay, I'll just hold you on a leash. Not in the middle of my sentence. So I'll say this again. So it's kind of like ironic to say a third time. You listen a third time. Rather, it's me reproduce so you can listen a third time. But you said you won't listen to me reproducing it now a third time. But then you also said, you followed that up with explain how it's irrelevant. Go ahead. But you also just said prior to that you don't want me to reproduce the explanation. So let's just get clear. Do you want me to explain how that question's irrelevant, or do you not?
What's the question?
Okay. We will.
I had to make
Have a
it
nice
easy.
one.
Yeah, explain your standard.
Bye. Trey, wait. Hold on. That was hilarious.